Hello everyone, I'm Shemcat, and in September of 2023, I became the first person to complete every single numbered Xenoblade game in a single setting, setting a speedrun world record of 22 hours, 19 minutes and 55 seconds, and seemingly everyone was impressed by it. Seemingly everyone, except for me. So on the second day of the new year, when most people were starting to give up on their New Year's resolutions, I sat down at my desk, started my stream, and started to play Xenoblade. Welcome to the Xenoblade Trilogy Redux. Oh, and spoilers, by the way. I still haven't learned Xenoblade X. Maybe when Definitive Edition comes out, stay tuned. The rules here are pretty simple. Just beat Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles Future Connected, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, all in one sitting and all from a new game file, trying to do this as fast as possible. For the most part as well, I wanted to play in normal mode. However, for Xenoblade Definitive Edition and Future Connected, I allowed the use of casual mode since here, it's the difficulty that has historically had much more competition and optimization, and since DE level penalties are evil in normal mode. Whilst I could have chosen any particular order to run these games in, for the sake of clarity, I just played in series order rather than doing anything custom. Even if I did mix and match the order, however, I think this game would have come first no matter what. But wait, didn't you just swap to casual mode for this game? What could be so bad that you do this game first, no matter what? Items. Basically every Xenoblade speedrun utilizes them in some form, and in this game, we need to fill out some rows of the Collectopedia in Colony 9, so we can get ourselves Quick Step 3, which increases our movement speed, which is very useful when the objective is going fast, as well as an Agility up 2, helping both our dodge rate as well as hit rate, a very powerful stat to increase in this game. Getting all this naturally will take a lot of good luck, but thankfully the trading system of this game allows us to get rid of our less useful items and instead get the things we need. Most of these trades are pretty cheap and reliably gotten, all except for one, the Chewy Radish, selling for about 4,500 gold. The only item we can trade for this is a Plate Snow, which is about a 1 in 10 chance to be collected, so if you get very unlucky, you can just keep missing the critical dice roll. In the worst case scenario, you can back up this with like 5 minutes of extra walking to Anti-Air Battery 3, but at that point I just reset. Start over my 22-hour speedrun from scratch. Hence why I'd rather just get this out of the way. Once you get to the first cutscene at Colony 9 and still don't have any Plate Snow, it's probably time to start getting worried since there aren't many spots left. We trade for the Chewy Radish with Jackson, who is in the residential district, so we ideally get our items before getting there, rather than on the way to Outlook Park, or of course, not at all. With just 3 spots left, I got it. Yes! We got Plate Snow! We can play the run, we can do the run! Let's go! A massive relief, since in normal PB attempts, you can get stuck here for ages trying to get good items, even over an hour with really bad luck. As you can imagine, I was glad to avoid adding any extra time onto the length of this run. As you can see in my possible time save, the live split feature that shows the difference between my PB's time in a specific segment compared to my best time ever, I had over 3 minutes to save, showing how bad the items in PB were. Part of the reason for this was thanks to XCDE having insane route developments over the course of the year. For reference, last year the world record was a 4:26. My PB is now a 4:22, 4 minutes faster. And the world record? Well, that's now a 4:06. A whole 20 minutes faster. And of course, with these route developments, the collections we needed were made far easier. The main changes are removing the 4 trades we used to do with Moritz, so we could get the truly outrageous achievement, equipping a gem in every slot, and skipping leveling down to fight the Light Wisp at like level 3, which was genuinely the most annoying fight in the game, but gave us a bunch of XP from beating the odds. Instead of both of those, what we do is... ah, crap, I missed it. Okay, now on my PB, the insane piece of tech we do to save our XP is... oh, crap, I missed it. Does he ever actually hit this? Alright, here's an actually good runner, Dread, doing this. Normally when we kill these mech on a chain attack, it immediately transitions into a cutscene, rather than displaying your finishing damage, like we can see in Myron's. But we can prevent the game from getting too eager by triggering one of the pop-up tutorials, which effectively pauses the game. If we do this as Dunban's Buster connects, the full damage is registered, triggering the chain attack achievements, that would just be skipped usually. These are Bonebreaker, Rock Smasher, Killer Combo, Cosmic Killer Combo, and Quantum Killer Combo, which takes us from level 7 to level 11 on Shulk and Rhine, in a single fight. Honestly, beyond this point, there isn't too much to say about this game that I didn't mention in my last video about the Xenoblade Trilogy speedrun. But for those of you who haven't seen that video, a brief rundown of the run is that we push a level 76 Sloth Gogol off a cliff in Chapter 4, so we get a late game weapon for Rhine, and then from there, we can take advantage of the 2x damage multiplier and the 2x party gauge increase in casual mode to absolutely demolish almost every boss in a chain attack. By hitting them in the side with Slut Edge, we both lower their physical defense and fill up our party gauge, so that once Rhine has used the aura Berserker that increases attack and lowers defense, and Dunban has used Peerless to increase party attack, we do a chain attack. We lower their physical defense somehow even more with Slut Edge and Worldly Slash, and then throw out our super buffed Sword Drive from Rhine, which does even more damage in the chain attack, since we used 2 other red arts before it. We also take advantage of the fact that we take 0.5 times the damage and aren't given accuracy penalties for being underleveled in casual mode, and go into fights at a much lower level than we should be for the fights we're doing. The final segment of this run is also really silly and takes advantage of this glitch known as Party Swap, that I talk about in depth in this video here. But all that's really important is it makes Hero Pon Ricky bestest, and he lets us close out our run in 4:42:42, a time that I wasn't very impressed with, and yet it was almost as good as my PB from last time. Departing from the typical Xenoblade fashion, this game is actually really short, just over half an hour in length. For reference, shorter than every single chapter in Xenoblade 3 with the exception of Chapter 6, and even then there still really isn't much in it. For the first 50% or so of this run, it's just running from place to place, grabbing landmarks to teleport to later. But the last 50% is just fight. Walking sections are always pretty consistent, and none of these fights are particularly variable. Well, all except for one, the Fog King, the final boss of this little block of Xenoblade 1. My run last time actually died in this fight, losing about 4 minutes, so I really wanted to lock in here and extend my massive lead going into Xenoblade 2. It will be easier for me to show you what happened here, rather than tell you. And we go in with like 2/3 charge, that's pretty good. Block! No! Go away. Go away. No, not Erasing Mist. No. It's off. Earm, what the squeak? Oh crap. Okay, I need to actually hit these. No! Damn it. It's fine. Shock armor back on. Get a little bit of double look going. Internal Blast, I hate that. It's so long. That did more damage than I was thinking. This is a little bit scary. This is a little bit scary. Please give me like an extra chance or something. Be nice. Oh crap, I die here. Just kill. Just die. Just die. Just die. Just die. Just die. Just die. Just die! Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay, I'm going to take a break now. I'll see you in a bit. That was...
Don't give up, no matter.
In case you weren't looking at the timer, that finished off as a 34:32 Future Connected, which is honestly a really solid time. After a quick break to grab a snack, get a refill on my drink and go to the toilet, I was back for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, Xenoblade 2 is my favourite game in the series, and by far the game here that I have the most speedrun skill in, so going into this run I was pretty confident I could just sit down, get a decent time without too much trouble, and move on to the next game. And I'd say I was fairly vindicated in that assessment. Even though I lost quite some time trying out a newly implemented clipping Gormot, I still continued at a pretty solid pace. But I still had to get through the Makos fight. The first phase is pretty easy, just collect 5 potions, and that'll give Crosette enough levels of Gathering Sparks for a tier 4 to take Akos to half health, and end the phase. Oh, and for those who don't know, Gathering Sparks is a Crosette skill that increases damage by up to 500% for every potion collected. A very easy condition to meet on Nia, and so insanely powerful for the speedrun, especially with Nia also being able to control the fight with a break art and a pure healing art. Now we awaken Mythra, and the second phase of Makos begins, and we start off by swapping from Rex to Nia, and then immediately disengage from the battle. By running around and standing in specific spots by the ledge, we can actually manipulate Malos into slipping off the edge, since his arts and auto attacks offset his position a little bit too much. Akos, on the other hand, has much better balance and won't fall off so easily. The strategy here is to use Corvin's tier 2 at a time where he can't resist the knockback, so either during a special animation, or after getting back up after a topple. In this run, I was too slow to take advantage of the special animation, but Nia got some lucky breaks, and Tora got some lucky topples, so by waiting until the duration was about halfway done, I could use my tier 2 and knock him off the ledge as he was standing back up. This ended chapter 3 with a pretty solid time, not amazing but not terrible, and I was able to continue into chapter 4 and pull some blades. This is considered to be the worst part of the run, and for good reason. You can lose tons of time and sometimes be put into a position where you can't even finish a run, all due to luck. But as they say, luck is a skill. Skipping forward a few chapters, we find ourselves in chapter 9, keeping up a solid pace, but the run is still far from over. The first protocol is this door, which needs an unreasonable selection of field skills to get past. Mythrigon has made a very in-depth video about this, but basically we can jump straight through. However, it's really hard. I lost 30 seconds to it here, but that's still considered a very good clip. Also, since there's not really anywhere else to mention it, I've been losing time throughout this run to taking lots of safety saves, because Xenoblade 2 does sometimes like to crash, and I would have preferred not losing several hours, and I just knew if it would happen at any point, it would happen 8 or 9 hours into my speedrun. Luckily, all my safety saves weren't required, and I could finish the run without crashing, but that doesn't mean I could finish the run without fighting Jin for a third time. This final fight against Jin is one of the hardest in the game, and we actually swap over onto Rex for this one. We take advantage of Mythra and Corvin having tier 2 specials with lots of hits to try and get as much party gauge as possible, so we can summon Yuma, which is only possible once reaching max affinity and having a full party gauge. She does literally all of this, can use any element in blade combos, can survive otherwise lethal attacks of 1 HP, takes the aggro for everyone else, increases party critical rate to 100%, reduces resistance to reactions like break, increases party accuracy and evasion, and will hit the weakness of the enemy, no matter what, further increasing her damage. And more, and is just generally really strong. So by summoning her, we can drop a tier 3 supernova onto Jin alongside a fusion combo, with her presence helping Nia to get a break. Jin is still really annoying and loves to use his many evasion arts at the worst possible times, or his high agility to just be missed outright. Here, Nia got a break in the middle of Corvin's special animation, meaning I'd be guaranteed a fusion combo, but because I missed my anchor shot, it was only a break fusion. Still strong, don't get me wrong, but a Ray of Light topple would have straight up killed. Even more annoying that he used Bladeless Blade right after, wasting more time because I basically just had to wait for the animation to be over before cleaning up the fight. Still very clean, but I can't dwell on that now, because it's now time for a Malthus. This is going to be one of the coolest fight strats in the series. Rather than play the fight normally, we run over to this hole and swap from Mythra to Pyra, so we can start a heat combo. Straight after, we transition into Numa, which draws all of his aggro to us rather than Morag, just in time for Guilty Road, where he jumps over to us and the hole, and also in time for us to use Burnout, the next stage of the combo. Now wouldn't you know it, the next special here is a Nuclear Blast, which comes with a nice little bonus effect of Blowdown, and with proper timing, that sends a Malthus into the hole, killing him and finishing the chapter in incredible time. Chapter 10 starts off against the ghosts of our party, who we kinda just bully with Corvin, and from there we just have to beat Artifice Ion. His first phase is pretty simple, as long as you have enough potions with Cressette, but his second phase is where the struggles begin. We start off by running into a corner where we let Nia die, but summon Numa so that Rex can tank Siren Buster, an insanely strong AoE art. From here we are now thrust into the break lottery. Ion has a lot of health, and we need to get 2 specials on a break in order to kill, alongside a chain attack. The big downside of this strategy, of course, is the fact we need a break. Acrobatic Bomber number 1. No break, but the first one doesn't matter. We need to break either on the second or third, any later and you will turn back into Mythra. Acrobatic Bomber number 2. No break again, but we can try again. All or nothing now. Acrobatic Bomber number X-Star? This is Ion's singular art that we don't want to see, since it makes him immune to breaks, and so no breaks for me. And my 357 pace? Thrown out the window, since he wouldn't even come close to dying in the chain attack. And yet, it had to get even worse. One of his summons used Scrap Drill and killed me from full health, and since I just exited another chain, no one could revive me, and I had to start the fight from scratch. From phase 1. I have my tier 4 active, so I really should have used the tier 4 immunity, but on my second attempt, I got to Ion 2 again, and he used X-Star again. But I somehow broke him out of it this time, not entirely sure how that happened. That art should only show up about 10% of the time, and on my first attempt, it was the latest I've ever seen it be used, which was particularly frustrating. Also, my last Trilogy run, I got hit with X-Star, the last practice I did got hit with it, and these 2 attempts also saw it. Well unfair, but we still pulled through with a 40301. Slightly disappointing, but maybe next time it'll be sub 4. Out of the 6 games in this speedrun, Torna is definitely the odd one out of the bunch. Whilst in every other game we can basically just rush the main story, Torna has a system known as Community, which requires you to complete a bunch of side quests to add NPCs to your community so that you can progress the story. We need to raise this to level 2 after first reaching Oresco, the royal capital, and then to level 4 after Malus attacks said capital. The thing about these side quests is that they require lots and lots of collectibles to complete. Just for an example, let's take a look at Bolstering Sales, a side quest in Oresco where you need to save this nobleman's business by collecting some materials to make some hats. For the knit hat, we need 4 cotton branches from Lasaria, 2 angel sages from Torna, and a sunflower rogue from Gormot, and then for the casual cap, 4 corkscrew creepers from Lasaria, 3 panda pansies from Gormot, and a floral soil, also from Gormot. That's 6 items I need to keep track of for just one quest, and if I don't have any of them, I'll lose like a minute. And so in the Torna run, you need to keep track of every item, how much we have of said item, and where to back it up if we're low, which can be pretty hard when a bunch come out of each collection point. Torna therefore has quite a learning curve, just because of how much you need to keep track of, but is all very manageable when you're just doing a single game run. But throw in every other game in the series, and get 10 hours into a speedrun? Yeah, Torna becomes exponentially more difficult, in the context of this being a multi-game run. If this had been my first foray into multi-Xeno, I wouldn't have been ready for this, as was very clear from my last run. But this time, I came prepared. I've played these games before, or something like that. Rather than just grinding Torna on its own, I'd play it alongside Future Connected and Future Redeemed in what I called the bonus trilogy, which got me used to playing it alongside other games, even if putting Torna 30 minutes in is very different to being 9 hours and 30 minutes in. The other thing that makes Torna feel really different is the combat. We use a silly glitch to get ourselves out of bounds and into the Tasteless Altar, which is where the Nopon Half Sage resides, and where he keeps some very useful core chips for our blades to increase our damage to the point where fights actually aren't too bad. This shifts the focus away from combat like every other game, and instead we need to optimize our collection and side questing, so we remain hyper aware of our collections and quest progress, which isn't bad, just different. So now it was actually time for Torna. How did my run go? Lysaria started off solidly, as I did my zombie jump well, but I was getting particularly unlucky with one item, the Grimdark Crab. We only need 3 of these, but since they're uncommon, if the game doesn't want to give you one, you just won't get one sometimes. You're able to back them up nearby the Aletta Militia Garrison, but since we need them so early, backing them up can become painfully slow compared to the other collectibles. After leaving Lysaria, my lead over my personal best had now been extended to half an hour, which was already massive, and yet I could easily save another 10 minutes in this Torna run. Gormott, and the start of Gormott especially, is the part of the run where you really need to concentrate for the items since you get so many in quick succession. So it was time for me to lock in. Don't look at Twitch chat, stop talking. Welcome to Counting with Shemcat. 2 sticky stick insects, 3 sticky stick insects, 1 crabble carapace, 2 hostile hyacinths, 1 meaty carrot, 1 hot orange, 3 forest stone, 2 dicey stone, 4 sticky stick insects, 1 ruska flower, 1 panda pansy. Anyway, let's catch up with Counting with Shemcat later, and fast forward to the end of Gormott. I may have lost some time towards the end, but I was able to keep track of all my items, and was able to play confidently, knowing my brain was functioning enough still to not completely throw the run. And luckily, this next quest will count for me. Feeding an army is a main story quest in Aletta that needs 5 ferrous beast meat that we picked up in Gormott, 7 weeping flower, of which I already had 6, 3 lactonuts that can only be picked up once reaching this area, and my Grimdark Crab. There are 2 spots off to the side, and after grabbing them, I was up to 2 out of 3. It is fairly out of the way, so I had to rewarp and run all the way over again, until I got enough. I pulled 2 spots, and still only had 2 out of 3, but finally on my 5th backup pull, I got my last Grimdark Crab, and could feed an army, eliminate the preoccupied Gogles and Slythe Jagaron, and get into the first community segment of the run. I've been talking about Torna for quite a while now, but before moving on to Xenoblade 3, I would just like to highlight one of the strats we do at the end of the game. If Laura gets a break, we wait for Hugo to topple, and then transcend with Adam, his talent art that trades some of his health for extending the driver combo duration, and then use a Vault. We transcend again, and have Bridget use Flame Bolt, and then transcend again, and in that time Jin will use an Ultimate Aurora, and deal about as much damage as you'd expect a triple stacked, topple Jin tier 3 to do. Of course, the format of this video only allows us to go in depth on a few things, but that's Torna, and despite it being one of the most different games in the series, I finished with a 2:13:31, which isn't too bad at all when you consider how much harder this game becomes. One final break, and it was time for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. You'd think this far into the run, I'd pretty much be a husk going into hour 12. Yes, I'd have rather been in bed, but I was chillin'. Hour 13, I was still alright, even though my face was starting to slightly bleed. Odd. Going into hour 14, I was still chillin' and still reading chat, a feat that was apparently insane to Multi-Mario legend Rodeo, who's done his fair share of long runs too. In fact, I finished chapter 3 in 2.5 hours, putting me almost 5 minutes ahead of my actual PB. Basically any run I had practicing Xenoblade 3 had been on PB pace, but fell on the last hurdle. Surely today would be no different, right? The whole of hour 14 I played insanely well, and managed to retain my lead even against some of the strongest splits in my PB. This was not only ahead, but now my best run of Xenoblade 3 ever. But man, something must have really changed in hour 15, because somehow all my skill went out of the window for just one fight. In Chapter 3, we unlock Valdi and his class as part of the story. The War Medic is actually really good for spamming buffs on our party, and can also heal pretty efficiently. We also buy 2 devotional necklaces, which basically give a full arts recharge after recovering our teammates. This is useful against Mobius D and J, or Mr. Wildride, who can kill us very quickly and doesn't take too much damage himself. So we want to get to a spot where we can do lots of damage, but won't take any. The Xenoblade 3 Chain Attack. By making both Tyon and Lanz a War Medic, we can buff and heal our party, and then pick them up after dying, skipping having to charge our arts again, and can use our arts over and over and over until we have a full chain attack meter and kill from there. Pretty simple, right? I'd agree. This fight really isn't that problematic, but for some reason I had a few attempts where I was most of the way through, and then a few characters fell, and then a few more, and I couldn't recover them faster than Mr. Wildride was killing them. And if it's both Tyon and Lanz, my healers on the ground, I can't recover the fight and I'm forced to retry. After a few very uncharacteristic deaths, I finally got my full chain meter, and everyone was looking very healthy. I swapped to Mio so she'd be killed and would increase the odds of the guys I wanted to see showing up, these being Tyon, Uni, and Ashura. I gradually chipped their HP down, and then for the final round I started off with Noah. You aren't supposed to do that. I mentioned how Tyon and Uni were important, and that is because their Ouroboros order is actually the strongest by far in chain attacks, with the primary reason for this being Uni's skill Shared Blessing, which increases their damage by up to 500% depending on how many buffs are active, which is a super easy condition to meet if you have a couple of War Medics in the party. Either my D-pad didn't want to register my inputs, or I just missed entirely, but Noah going first meant I had no opportunity to get off my buffs, meaning I was not able to kill and had to retry the fight. After the AI refused to pick up my other healer twice and I had to reset, I got another fight into the chain. This time I was very careful to use the correct buttons in the chain. I still didn't have enough damage. It turned out my menu beforehand was incorrect, and so I only got half as many buffs. After another attempt, I got into the chain, Uni, Ashura, Noah, Tyon, and the Yunon order. Started with Uni to chip some damage, and then my 2 War Medics. I used Cure Bitter on Lanz, and finally realized Vital Bullet was in the wrong place, so I finished off with Noah, and at long last, I had made it through the fight. 15 minutes down the drain, and any chance of PB dashed, alongside a massive blow to my current lead. Even if I was still 40 minutes ahead. I wasn't angry, just disappointed. To take our minds off that, let's talk a little more generally about the run, and one of the most commonly asked questions, which is do you take advantage of any of the classes obtained outside of the story, or at least was to that effect. I mentioned that we take advantage of Ashura, but rather than do her whole quest, we just walk a few meters to the side to reach her quest trigger, and she automatically inserts herself into the party. We can just quit out of this fight, and we have successfully kidnapped Ashura, and can use her for the rest of the game as our hero. The combination of both increasing our damage ratio and giving a party-wide power charge is really useful, but where she shines is being able to get an easy 200% upon finishing an order, which is really helpful for consistently getting everyone you want back. At the start of Chapter 4, we can also start Izzard's quest, and he'll join our party. His effect is like a Diet Ashura, and gives a free 150% rather than 200%, which is still more than good enough before we can get to Colony 11. He also can grant a few extra buffs, which helps with maximizing our damage with the Yunon Ouroboros. By virtue of using the DLC, we can also use the Lapidorist Extraordinaire Masha, and kidnap her after starting her quest once reaching the city. While she isn't as good in chain attacks as Ashura or Izzard, Masha really proves her worth with her skills, and can make a lot of chain attacks fairly redundant in the late game. She can boost party-wide crit rate and crit damage, as well as allowing more rings to be in the field, which doesn't seem huge, but can be especially helpful in the Zed fight, in particular, where we want to set approximately 14 trillion rings on the ground. For the final side quest we start as Monica's, and this time we actually finish. Unironically, her quest is really fast. There are a ton of enemies around the area where you, Zuo, and the other one's belongings are, but thankfully for us, this is Agnes's blind division, and we can very easily sneak past and grab the items. By heading back to the Remembrance Stones, we complete the quest, and whilst the Lost Vanguard doesn't do much on its own, once it has reached rank 10, the art Mighty Beat can be learnt, with the ability to smash launched enemies, And if you've seen any optimal builds in Xenoblade 3, you'll know Smash is quite good. The secret to getting as much damage done with a Smash is to hit as early into the launch duration as you can, as the remaining topple duration is added to the launch duration. We can use a topple duration accessory for our toppler to maximize this damage as much as we can, which is how we get such insane fights after this point, being able to deal almost all of a boss's health in a single hit. Finishing chapter 5 and moving into hour 17 of the run, I was now 13, almost 14 minutes behind. And from there, things reasonably get worse, as chapter 7 is my personal hell, and I was now really exhausted. Hours 17 and 18 were far from being impressive, and thanks to a very sloppy Z fight, I even passed hour 19, with the 5th game of the stream being done in 19 hours, 3 minutes and 44 seconds, and Xenoblade 3 being finished in 7 hours, 12 minutes and 5 seconds. I started my final run of the marathon at 19:05:09. If I tied my future redeemed PB, I'd get a time of 21 hours and 53 seconds. But my PB is bad. In theory, I could beat it. Whilst before I was tired, now I was full of energy coming up on the climax of this speedrun. This wasn't the best gameplay ever, but with a good ending, this will be enough for a new future redeemed PB, and a trilogy time of sub 21. It all came down to the Black Mountains. Hello everyone, I'm Shemcat, and today we'll be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, and how it's the worst speedrun in the series by far. Actually, wait, I don't want to double this video's length. There are a few things I'd like to highlight though, the first being Turkin skip. Rather than fighting all the Turkins in this area, we can instead utilise some funky collision and just jump around the side of the mountain. However, we have to do this on a very strict time limit, as all the Turkins are aggroed on Nicol, and will swap over to us as soon as he dies. The rocks can be really finicky to move around, and it's really easy to fall off if you mistime your jump slightly, and it's also possible for the Turkins to swat you out of the air when trying to jump across, which is always really fair. Unfortunately, this is where the PB dream ended, since you lose a ton of time every time you fail and have to retry, since the respawn location is so far away. The next future redeemed thing I'd like to highlight is N. He has roughly 3 more billion hit points, so we need to combine the power of Rex and Glimmer to absolutely decimate him, because Rex is broken. But that isn't where the chapter ends. After fighting N here, we have to 1v1 him as Nael back in the city. In my last video about the Xenoblade Trilogy, I talked about how the Nael fight really sucks, but I didn't talk about the other Nael fight. That's because for every other runner, it's a non-issue, because all you need to do to end it is use a couple arts to fill up our talent art, and then use it. The phase will end. Unless your name is Shem G Cat. For some reason, for just me, sometimes the phase will not end, and no one really knows why. But it happened here, and I lost several minutes to it. A time loss that I didn't particularly deserve, but after doing my talent art like 8 more times, each at a roughly 20-second penalty, I made it to chapter 5, the last chapter of the speedrun. In this chapter, we fight Alpha twice, and need to get some decent chain attacks to get through their massive health bars. Again, we like to use Rex and Glimmer here for their broken order, and I got them quickly, and just had to make sure not to miss input right at the finish line, and then I'd hopefully get enough damage to get a kill. Time to use Nael in the chain attack. No, time for this to not kill. Time for this to not kill. Bro, it's so not gonna kill. It's so not gonna kill. I do not trust this game. I do not trust this game. If there's one thing I don't trust, it's this game, man. Let's go, man. Let's go! Okay. Let's go 207! What an awful run! What an awful run, man. I bet you thought I messed up, didn't you? But no, we got the kill, finishing FR in 207.43, and finishing the Trilogy run in 21:12:52, beating my old world record time by over an hour. There were definitely things I would have improved over the course of this run, but I'd say the good outweighed the bad this time around. Xenoblade 2 was really good except for Ion, XC3 was really good except for Mr. Wildride, and Future Redeemed was really good except for Tarkin Skip, which I think I can say I'm proud of. I have no clue when I'll attempt this challenge again, but sub 21 is more than doable. And if I improved my Xenoblade 3 especially, I could be pushing for a sub 20 hour time. But definitely don't count on it. And also, before anyone suggests adding X Definitive Edition on top of everything here when it comes out, no, please, it's already far too long. I will be streaming my casual XDE playthrough alongside learning how to do that speedrun, but doing it alongside everything else does not seem like a good time. But thank you for watching this video about the day I played 21 hours of Xenoblade. Hopefully you learned a thing or three about these runs that I think are so cool. And also, before I forget, let's check back in on counting with Shemcat. He should be done now, right? 2 Lilies of the Sunny Valley, 1 Curious Rotting Leaf, 3 Lilies of the Sunny Valley. Poor guy.